and welcome to Thursdays at 3. Today we're going to be making my world famous Nana's coffee cake. If you've ever lived near me and have been special enough to receive a cake, then you're going to be pretty excited because you'll be able to make your own cake. Today I'm going to teach you guys how to use the mini pie pan to make mini cakes. For years, I think I started making this coffee cake when I was probably 10, 11 years old, and then I've been making it. Everybody gets it for Christmas, everyone in my family, and I finally figured out, hey, if I make it in this, they turn out very cute, and then I can just give them away. So we are back from New York. I'm getting back into the swing of things. If I can show off my super cute apron from our trip. Thank you for everybody who liked our pictures and followed our journey. Making this coffee cake, I can give the recipe to you, but if you don't watch how the crumbs are made, you can get very, very frustrated. So we're just gonna whip together the cake, and then I'll do the crumbs, and then I'll post a picture later of what it looks like, and I'll give you the recipe. It might require a hug or two for the recipe, but we'll see what we can do. So here we go. Here are Alice's Nana's coffee cakes. So we want to start with some softened butter. We live in Florida, so sometimes the softened butter just, gets a little melty, but you know what? It's fine. So we have our stick of butter. We need a cup of sugar. So basically you're just going to follow the recipe: butter, sugar, salt, baking powder, stuff like that. But I'll go ahead and do it up for you so you can follow along, because you know what? Not everybody has the skill set to be able to be a baker, but watch enough YouTube videos and stuff and you'll get there. So we need a cup of sugar and a teaspoon of vanilla, and I pulled out some old school measuring tools today because I knew that I was going to need wet and dry, and I didn't want to have to stop to wash them. So the cake, we're going to start with a teaspoon of vanilla, butter, and sugar. And then I forgot, I got to set that aside for just a sec because we have to be able to do the flour part. And often if I'm talking and I'm not paying attention, I over add the flour. So I'm going to do that really quick. And I think if I move this out of the area, you can see. And I tell people all the time, professional bakers, they weigh their flour, but you just shouldn't stick the measuring scoop in the flour because it's going to change the weight of what you're making your cake or something like that. So if you're a novice baker, sort of like me, just go ahead and scoop it in there so it doesn't pound down. That's the way you handle brown sugar, but that's not the way you handle flour. So I think I've had this Tupperware scoop since 1996, 95. I'm not sure if I got it in my first year of marriage or not, but I'm just going to go ahead and lightly scoop that in there. And I now have 2 cups of flour to add. Now baking powder. Let's talk about baking powder for just a sec. Most of us have a can that looks like this. Mine comes from Aldi. I read a tip online somewhere that if you shake up your baking powder, the fresher baking powder that's on the bottom of the can is going to rise to the top, and also keep it in the refrigerator. So mine is definitely in the refrigerator. I need 2 teaspoons, like I said, old school measuring today. And then I was just hanging out with a friend who said, hey, here's my baking soda. And she handed me the baking soda in the box, but it was open. So what is baking soda designed to do? It's designed to take in those odors in your fridge. You don't want to be adding that to your food. So what we're going to do is, I think I got this Tupperware container in the late 90s, and I've had it forever. This has my baking soda in it, and I just cut off a little piece of the box so I never forgot what's in here. But I also use it as a measuring tool. So I need a teaspoon and a quarter. I'm just gonna rough it, right? Because our little measuring spoon doesn't come in that, and a little bit of extra baking soda never hurt anybody. I don't even know. This recipe is from the 70s, so who knows what they were thinking, right? So now I have my baking soda and my flour. I think if you were a true baker, you'd probably be sifting it, blah, blah, blah. We're not gonna do that today. And then I'm gonna go over it. Let's see if I can pop it up just a little. Hey Shan, it's not a Christmas cookie, but it is a cake, and I can send Leslie the recipe if you want. So I'm going to use my fabulous KitchenAid mixer. See if you guys can see that. That makes a great Christmas gift. Anybody who might be shopping for someone who likes to bake, great gift. So we've got our KitchenAid mixer. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of stuff in there. And let's see if I can bring you a little bit closer so you can see. See how the dough, the mix is kind of thick? The reason for that is because there's a secret ingredient. It's called sour cream. So we're gonna add a cup of sour cream and 2 eggs, and that is going to be the wet in our recipe. And you could absolutely measure, but you need a cup, and half a pint is a cup. So I'm just gonna scoop out half. I've made this recipe probably, I can't even tell you how many times do I make it a year. The kids get all excited. The house smells fantastic. If I make it at a time that's not Christmas, they get super excited. So I've probably made 300 of these cakes in my lifetime, so I do know what I'm talking about. So we've got that, and we just need 2 eggs. So the key would be you do the dry separate, you add it in there, and I'm probably breaking the rules by just adding all this at the same time. But again, I did say novice baker, I didn't say expert baker. But you know what? The people who get the coffee cake, they ain't complaining. And I even said to Andrew, is your girlfriend going to be over the next day or two? Because we're going to need someone to help eat these coffee cakes. So I guess if you're in the area, just come on by and we'll hook you up. So we're going to go ahead and mix that up. It doesn't take much. And what's so nice about this recipe is when you make it in the little pans, they come out so perfect. They look like the Hostess cakes, but just a little bigger than what you had maybe as a kid. So it's going to slide out, but I'm going to go ahead and just give this a spray because sometimes I might get like a sugary spot that's going to stick. And I figured, better safe than sorry, right? The pans are non-stick, but you just never know. Eggs are a binding agent. There might be an egg white, and I want these to turn out fabulous. And don't let this intimidate you. See how that is? That's made for if you were going to do an apple pie, if you were going to do a chicken pot pie, something like that. But I'm just using this because I like the size. I've tried it with our brownie pan, and the brownie pan is just a little too small. Each well, I mean, believe me, I can bake some brownies in there, and I might have today. But we're also doing these coffee cakes so you guys can see. Okay, so we've got our coffee cake. And the hard part, if you're gonna give the coffee cake away, is to not stick your finger in there and try it, just so that you can see this is what your coffee cake mix should look like. So we have some softened butter, we have some sour cream, flour, sugar, all that stuff. Again, I'll post the recipes, but just so you can see, they did a pretty good job while I wasn't looking. All right, so that's that part. And here is why you tuned in. I have a very good friend whose mother's from New Jersey who loves my coffee cake, and she's like, I also need the recipe. But then I get the phone call, I can't get the crumbs to turn out right. So here's the thing, I'm just gonna dump everything in there so that you can see, and then I'll turn the camera, well, it'll already be down there. Then I'll just show you how, when you live in Florida, you never know with the humidity or whatever, you don't want the crumbs to be wet. You want them to be nice and dry and crumbly because they look beautiful and they bake up so well. So we'll go back to the camera because if you're not a baker, you're gonna wanna follow along. So here we go. So what I did before we tuned in was I melted, let me just double check. Yes, I did. I melted a stick and a half of butter. And if you want to, you can liquefy it, but it's harder to make the crumbs if it's liquefied. So I just like it softened like this. And then we're gonna add, it's a cup and a half of sugar. I never said this coffee cake was low calorie, did I? Because if I did, I was lying. But a lot of people will call it New York coffee cake, and it's very, very delicious. And you will be the superstar. And you can tell Publix to keep their coffee cake. You don't want none. And you can also tell Entenmann's that you've got the best recipe out there and you don't care what they think. So again, I'm just dumping and I'll show you why. And then we've got 2 cups of flour. So if you're gonna make a repeated, a lot of these cake mixes, sometimes I just double the recipe because you can bake 2 cakes at a time. And honestly, I've been with Paper Chef a lot of years. I love our stoneware, but I find that this cake is so dense that I find it bakes a lot better in a disposable pan. Plus, if you're going to your in-laws or you're going somewhere and you want to take some coffee cake, it's nice just to give them the disposable and they can keep it. But even if I'm baking it just for us, I often will grab a disposable pan instead. All right, and then the crumbs, we want to make sure that those cook up just a little bit, so we're going to get a teaspoon of baking powder. For those of you who are brand new to baking, baking powder is what helps your food rise. Oh, almost forgot the salt. You need half a teaspoon salt. And I always like to do salt over the sink because if you get too much salt in your recipe, you're not going to be happy. Salt, and then we've got cinnamon. And here's where, if you want, you can put a little more, but you don't have to. You just want a hint of the flavor. But I don't really even measure because if I get a little extra, I'm not complaining. All right, here we go. So we got all of our ingredients in there, right? And you're thinking, how in the world are these ever going to make crumbs? Well, if you've ever made a pie and a pie crust, then you know you have to work that butter in order to get it to form into crumbliness. So you're thinking, I don't know about this, Alice. Well, I tell you what, the outside of the bowl is your friend. You just keep working it in there. And sometimes I'll just stick my hands in there if it's not going the way I want to, but this is exactly what I want. I want to be able to take the bigger pats of butter that are in the bottom and push it together. I got some butter stuck on my spoon there, and honestly, I got these guys out because these are our brand new little quick cut knives. They're sold in the set of 3. I think they're $7.50 for 3 of them. They make an awesome, awesome stocking stuffer, little gift. I'm going to a gift exchange that I'm going to use them in. You know what? 1, 2, yeah. I feel like this doesn't have enough butter in it. That's so weird. What did I do wrong? I was doing some other things before I logged on, but I don't think there's enough butter in here. I did 1 stick, half a stick. Did I leave one in the microwave? Oh, great. No? Well, I did something wrong. Oh, I know what I did. I melted the butter for the cake, but I never did one for the crumbs. I'm like, no wonder this doesn't look right. So, you know what? Pampered, not perfect. Let me just melt that real quick, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. So, stay tuned. I'll be right back. Okay, that gives me 20 seconds to talk about those knives again. $7.50, cute little gift, and they come with these little papers, so you can carry it around in your purse, just not to the airport, but you always have a knife to be able to cut into boxes, the mail, whatever. All right. Here we go. I forgot a stick of butter. I thought something wasn't right. And again, I'm sad to say I've made this cake, what did I say, 300 times? All right, so now this is getting to be what we want it to be. Because sometimes it's too wet and people just go for it and then you're not happy with the texture of the crumbs. See, that's way too wet, but I'm gonna keep working it in. If you're still watching and you wanna throw out a comment or a question, I'd be happy to answer it while I work up my little crumbs here. We'll see if Alice can multitask, even though she forgot the extra stick of butter today. I knew that didn't look right. Okay. So you see the crumbs? These are too wet. And it could be because I didn't let the butter sit, that kind of thing. And so what I would do is if I were not cooking on Facebook Live, and it were just me, I would say, you know what, that's too wet. And I would just grab 1 more scoop of flour, maybe another little quarter, and I would keep working it in until I get more of a dry, because I want the crumbs to separate when they go onto the cake mix. So if I'm doing a 9x13 or if I'm just doing a little one, I want it to be crumbly and not be a wet crumb. And you know what, think about it. Why don't you want to add flour, more flour to a pie dough? Because pie dough doesn't have a ton of sugar in it. Why don't you want to add more flour to cookies? Because it changes the ratio. Okay, this cake, this topping has so much butter and sugar in it that a little bit extra flour, not even going to matter. Okay, so I would look at that and I'd still say, you know what? Not happy. And just like anything else, You can always add a little more, but you can't take any out. So that's why the recipe that I'll post, if you live somewhere else and you don't have the same humidity or cooking conditions that we do, then I would just do the recipe, check out what your crumbs look like, and then go back and add a little bit more. And that's what I do with my sugar cookies for sure. All right. So before we came on, I had just washed my hands. So I could keep going with the spoon, but at this point, I just really want to mash in some of the leftover. You don't have to do your hands. I'm just trying to expedite things because I know there's like a little bit of cinnamon and stuff at the bottom that I really want to take advantage of. And against the wall there. All right, this is going to be, I'm sorry if you're gluten-free because this has flour in it. I guess I could try a gluten-free recipe. I don't know. So you can see it's supposed to be crumbly like this. So here we are, ready for stage 2. I'm going to cheat and use my scoop. I almost forgot the scoop. So we have our cake mix. And if you do this right, you get 18 of these little babies. And yes, I invested in 2 pans because I like cooking them at the same time. And think about it, you could make mini meatloaves, you could do little taco pockets, you could do chicken pot pies. I just really went crazy looking for recipes to make, and I think I'm going to make little turkey pot pies with our leftover turkey that I made when we got back from our trip. Sorry for the barking. Just going to add a little bit because it looks like I have quite a bit left in the pan. There we go. And so honestly what I do is I tend to just mash that down, but remember, this is a cake mix. So the cake mix had baking powder in it. It also has flour, so of course it's gonna rise. And I'll post a picture of one of the ones that I do that has a little bit more in it and one that has a little bit less. So I would probably take 2 spoons. First I need my topping to be all crumbly again, and honestly, if I was doing this in a 9x13 pan, I just start to like throw it onto there and then I even it out, but since we're doing these little cakes, I probably have to be more disciplined just because I want them to be crumbly on there. And then when they come out, if you've ever seen a New York coffee cake, it's sprinkled with powdered sugar. And we have the perfect little flour sugar shaker to be able to do that. So I think there are going to be some pretty happy children in the Goodell house tonight because coffee cake will be made and it's not even Christmas yet. It's not even Andrew's birthday. And sorry about that. Pandora kicked in and I'm not sure you wanted to hear the Christmas music. So these are pretty much tools that everybody owns. A couple spoons, you could use your regular mixer. It doesn't even have to be a KitchenAid, but mine's so pretty and red. And if you're looking for some mixing bowls, look no further. Pampered Chef has beautiful glass ones. That's what I'm using. Ta-da! Oh, I need another one right down there. And then what's so neat is the cake rises up and takes in the crumbs and it all blends together, and then I hit it with some powdered sugar and it's so delicious. Okay, so thank you for sticking with me all this time. Look, we've got some beautiful coffee cakes ready to go in the oven. I'll post the final picture and I'll post the recipe. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can tell you. Definitely keep the baking powder in the refrigerator, keep the baking soda. Doesn't matter where you keep it, but keep it sealed so that it doesn't take on the flavor of what you've put it in with. And I hope you have a great holiday. If you would, if you've watched, let me know if you want to learn how to make Bavarian nuts or spice nuts. I might do that next week because those are my mom's favorite. So if you want to I guess we'll just vote. If we get enough people to vote, like, hey, I would love to see how you make those Bavarian nuts, then I'll make them live next week on Thursdays at 3, and that'll probably be it for the end of the year because Christmas is coming. So again, this is the mini pie plate. If you want some more information on that, just hit the comments and I'll send you a link and you can see more in depth about it. It does come with a pie circle cutter so that you don't have to kind of try and figure that out. And maybe if I decide to make those turkey pot pies, I'll let you know. So, Daisy, we know you're nuts, but do you want to see them made? I think you do, I'm just kidding. So you guys have a great day. And if you live local, just shoot me a text or a Facebook message and you can come by and get a coffee cake. So thanks and have a great Thursday.